Okay, so today we have a Q&A with one of JD Advising's UBE course participants, Heather, and she's been kind enough to answer some questions for us about her experience prepping for the uniform bar exam and giving you guys some advice as well. So thank you so much for being here, Heather.
Certainly.
So my first question for you is, how did you prepare yourself to take the UBE?
So I originally had signed up for a big box course and had really kind of thought that that was the direction I was going to go. That's what everyone in my program was doing. And then the summer before I was ready to take the bar prep class, because my plan was to take the February bar, I participated in a legal writing seminar course through your company, JD Advising. And I just had such a positive experience. It was one-on-one. I worked with Ambika. She was fabulous. She gave me lots of clear directions, great assignments. And kind of towards the end, I noticed that you also had a UBE training course or prep course. And I thought, you know what? I really like these people. This has been, the personal experience is important to me. I have invested all this time and all this money in my education, and I want to pass the bar on the first try. So I started to inquire about, hey, what does your program look like? I was kind of comparing prices and kind of trying to decide whether I could handle an individualized, self-structured bar prep study or whether a course would be good for me. And in the end, I did make the decision to go with your bigger package, which included, a regular meeting time 3 days a week for several hours a day, regular assignments, regular access to real multiple choice questions. And the more I thought about it, I thought, this is an investment in myself. I've invested this far. I'm going to keep going. And so I made the commitment to take the UBE course through JD Advising.
Excellent. And we're so happy you're here on the other side of it. You were successful on your first try, which was exactly your goal. So congratulations again.
Thank you.
So my next question is, what did you think was the most challenging part of bar prep, and what did you do or how did you overcome it?
Well, for me, I was joking earlier, it's kind of like, learning to drink through a garden hose. Initially, there's so much material coming at you. And I think real property was the first subject that we covered. And it's pretty dense as a subject. So the first week or two, I really spent a lot of time just getting my routine down. I set office hours for myself. I took time off from my employer just to be able to focus on the bar. I was in the chair every morning at 8:30, took my lunch break at noon, went back to it at 12:30. So I think it was helpful that I had structure. JD Advising provides, week by week assignments, the essay subjects, more than it was difficult to, just based off the volume, to spend my time on my essay exam portion, spend the time on the multiple choice portion. So it took me a while to develop a rhythm. But gosh, once I got that down, I think that was a huge help for me, having the structure. Because I took the winter session, there was a bit of a break for the holiday, and I used that time, I think, pretty wisely. I used that time to kind of go over the subjects we covered the first 3 weeks, and that was really, really helpful. Then I felt really strong in January when we came back and we were able to push through the next section. And that's, I think, a nice feature, I guess, of taking it in the winter, is that you've got that little bit of extra time. Using the multiple choice bank, which is provided by JD Advising, trying to really do 30 to 40 questions every day and kind of starting out off in the morning with that, before reviewing the last night's material and then looking ahead to the material that will be presented at 3 o'clock. That made for a pretty full plate, but I did it. And again, I think structure really had a lot to do with it, holding myself accountable that way. And also knowing I was accountable to JD Advising, that I was going to have to submit my homework.
Exactly. Good. You're right. A lot is thrown at you during bar prep. And I think getting into a good rhythm, as you called it, is so hard. But it is a necessary step in ultimately being successful. So I think a lot of people will definitely understand where you're coming from. So what do you think was the most helpful piece of advice that you received while you were prepping for the bar?
I think the most helpful piece of advice I received was to write an essay or 2 or 3 every day. And what was told to me was don't just outline the essay with the black letter law, but actually write the essay, form the sentences, practice the structure. And at first that was really overwhelming advice for me, because they also say do 30 to 40 questions a day, right? So between writing these essays and doing these questions, and you're supposed to study the new material, and it felt really overwhelming. But I started that in December, and by February, when the bar was just around the corner, I could really knock out those essays quickly. The actual act of writing things out for me as a learner is huge in terms of committing things to muscle memory, and that worked really, really well. So I think that's probably the best advice I got. The other advice I would throw in there is not to neglect the MPT. They told me early on at JD Advising that the MPT was actually, I think it's 20% of the overall score. And I hadn't really thought about it like that. And the MPT, I think, is something that's really easy to let slide off your radar or neglect. If you're going to pick something to neglect, you'll neglect that. But man, I am so grateful for the practice MPTs. I'm so grateful that you use actual questions from previous exams instead of, made up questions, because I want to work with the real stuff. And I really enjoyed that the MPTs, there was a variety of them. So you got different types of problems and had to really think through and work through those problems. And, eventually do it in a timed situation where you don't have all day to figure stuff out. I think that was huge in my success with the MPT portion of the bar exam.
That's great. And I'm so happy you said that, because I think the MPT should be everyone's favorite, most favorite part of bar prep. It's free points if you take it seriously at the beginning. It's a closed universe task. You just need to practice. So I love it. Like I said, it creates that point cushion. So I'm glad you took that advice seriously. And it was one less thing to stress about on bar exam day.
Right.
So looking back, what do you wish you would have done differently while you prepared for the bar? If anything.
Well, I don't know if I would have done anything differently. I think the decision for me, because I made the decision late to pivot from going forward with the big box course to switching to your program, I want to say I made the decision in October and our classes started in November.
Right.
And I had already studied with this big box company for years. I don't know. I think for me, it was the right decision to go with the personalized, smaller company like yours. And you guys really kept me on track. And you also listened. Rosie there was particularly great at listening to my worries and insecurities when I needed someone to hear me that I was really struggling with the subject. I don't know that I would change anything.
Oh, well, that's really nice to hear. And I think a big part of that is because you got a new routine. It sounds like pretty early on, though it is hard to hit that rhythm. I feel like when I ask this question to most people, that tends to be the most common response was struggling to get in that routine and the challenges they face while doing that. And they wish they would have just really tried harder at the beginning. But I think that was on your radar from the get-go. So that's really great. So what is some advice you would give for other first-time takers who are preparing to take the uniform bar exam?
I would say use real questions. Don't waste your time on a bunch of made-up questions. I didn't know till I started with JD Advising that it is possible to look at past bar exam answers and questions and there are a couple different websites I think that were specifically recommended for me to just look at those answers, see how, and answers that are winning answers and answers that pass muster. I think that another piece of advice was that, realize your answer doesn't have to be perfect. but right, you're going for points. So the more points you can acquire, the better. And I think JD Advising does a great job of pointing out, like, here's extra points. Here's where points exist. I would never have known that. I think that using the real questions in your question bank too. I think that made a huge difference for me, and practicing and being able to break those down. And one of the things I loved about the JD Advising course was you actually walked through those questions. Okay, here's the question. Here are your 4 choices. Now, what can you eliminate right away? And really using the process of eliminating every possible answer to get to the right answer, rather than kind of skimming, because the multiple choice questions are hard.
Oh yeah.
They are hard. And so, but I felt like JD Advising provided me a fantastic formula to help me figure out exactly how to tackle those.
Oh, that's wonderful. Good. And I feel like what you just said is a common symptom of people, even sometimes those who are unsuccessful with the bar and they're looking for a new way to prep, is not knowing that there are like truly really good resources out there. And what we're referring to are real questions. So I think that's really, really good advice. So a few last questions kind of about you and your bar experience, but where did you take the bar exam?
So I took it, I'm in Washington State. So I took it in there's a convention center here near us. And I took it there in a room. I think there were 370 takers on the day that I took it. I live probably 2 hours from where the exam was. And although I could have driven back and forth, I made the decision to go stay where the exam was, just to kind of give myself a bit of a closed universe and some quiet, just to study and prep and get my mind in the right place.
That's a great idea. Less stress on bar exam day, the better. So if you can make things easier and streamlined, I think that was very wise. So when it came to your bar exam days, was there anything that surprised you about your experience?
Yes, I was really surprised by, I knew it was going to be, you only bring your stuff in a Ziploc bag and it's very structured and you show your ID and you sit in the chair and you're not really supposed to move around a whole lot, you want to. So I knew it was going to be strict like that, but when you're actually sitting there and they're up on the podium reading you the directions and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is my moment. There's definitely some fear there. But another thing JD Advising did, I thought was really great was as part of the course, you talked a lot about using positive affirmations, visualization, and I had practiced those skills. So when I sat in the chair with my laptop in front of me, I was able to kind of repeat some of those mantras, that I really needed. You've earned your seat at the table. You understand the law. You will, let's see, what did I say? You'll understand the law. You will apply the law appropriately. Just these little kind of mantras that I kept repeating over and over. So now when I'm sitting in the chair and I'm intimidated, and the poor gal sitting next to me and her hands were just shaking. I thought, oh my gosh, typing is going to be a challenge for her. But for me, having those affirmations, I walked in with confidence. And I would not have thought to do that had I not taken your course. I'd never tried an affirmation like that before in my life. So it was pretty powerful.
Oh, that's good. I'm so happy. I know you can prepare, but bar exam day still is stressful. So, if you can put yourself in the best state of mind as you can, that's good. That's really positive. Well, then my last question is, do you have any advice for examinees for the actual bar exam day to maybe help their experience be better or more positive like yours?
I would say don't forget to eat. That's important. You won't have much of an appetite because you'll be so nervous, but you want to have your best game on. So definitely taking that time to eat before the morning session kicks off. And then giving yourself space to breathe. I think for me, I had studied everything I was going to study and I knew everything I was going to know by the time I got there and checked into the hotel and the night before. So from that moment on, I didn't spend a whole bunch of time cramming and trying to madly read note cards the night before or the night in between the two exams. I know some people might think that's foolish, but for me, I felt like I knew as much as I could know going in, and I really wanted to spend my time focused in a positive place. And so even on the lunch hour, I didn't sit and study. I decided to go for a walk, walked around, got some fresh air, grabbed something to eat. I think that that's important. I think you want to pace yourself for that actual experience because it is a grueling one.
Oh, yeah, it is a marathon. And I think that's really, really good advice. Not that I would ever want to be negative, but usually, what you know the day before the bar exam is what you know. So cramming and staying up all night or having a stressful morning or a stressful lunch period because you're trying to study is really not productive. Nothing positive usually comes from it. So I think that's excellent advice. Well, those were all my questions. So thank you so much, Heather, for being with us today. I'm sure your advice and your answers will be really helpful to some prospective UBE takers.
Thank you.